From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang and here are the news. Malacañang on Tuesday said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is pleased with the government's timely response and cooperation during Typhoon, or rather Super Typhoon 1, international name Fung Wong, which reduced casualties. Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the President is happy with how government agencies and local government units manage the impact of Uwan.
Ang mga nangyayari po kasing kalamidad at sakuna, minsan hindi po talaga natin maiiwasan. At nangyayari ito nang hindi natin ginugusto. So yung mga paghahanda po na ipinapakita ng mga agencies na nakakapagsagip ng mga tao mula sa peligro, nakikita po ng Pangulo ang magandang ginagawa ng ating mga ahensya. Sa tulad po ng nireport natin kahapon, 426 families ang nailikas agad. At ito ay naiwas sa anumang peligro. So malaking bagay po iyan. Hindi po natin maiiwasan na mayroon pong nasasawi dahil po sa kalamidad. Pero dahil po sa preemptive measures na ginagawa po ng mga ahensya po natin, sa utos na nga rin po ni Pangulong Marcos Jr., mas malaki po ang nagiging pagsagip natin sa ating mga kababayan.
According to Undersecretary Castro, the Department of Energy or DOE has already restored power in 454 of 712 impacted towns, accounting for more than 60% of all storm-hit localities, citing an Energy Secretary Sharon Garin's report. She noted that the Department of Information and Communications Technology or DICT, led by Secretary Henry Aguda, said that most cell sites and internet connections were restored. 82% for Smart, 77% for Globe, 63% for Dito, and 79% for Converge. The palace said President Marcos had previously directed round-the-clock road clearing operations under the Department of Public Works and Highways or DPWH and dispatched cabinet officials to lead relief and rehabilitation efforts in provinces devastated by Uwan and Typhoon Tino, international name Calmegi. Among them were DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian in Catanduanes, in charge of food distribution, Health Secretary Ted Herbosa in Leyte, in charge of medical response, Education Secretary Sonny Angara in Negros Occidental, in charge of inspecting damaged schools, and Energy Secretary Sharon Garin in charge of power restoration. Castro said that the president is still monitoring preparations as Pag-asa has warned of Uwan's likely return in the Philippine Area of Responsibility or PAR. The weather agency predicts that Uwan will reach PAR on Wednesday night and make landfall on Taiwan's southern coast before collapsing into a remnant low.
Ganun pa rin po, hindi pa rin po titigil ang ating mga ahensya, ang Pangulo, para maibigay agad ang tulong, maiwasan ang mga maaaring disgrasya sa ating mga kababayan. Nandun pa rin po ang mga preemptive measures dahil yun din po ang balita na maaaring bumalik. Ipagdasal po natin na sana hindi na.
One with maximum sustained winds of 185 kilometers per hour and gustinas of up to 230 kilometers per hour made landfall in Dinalungan, Aurora on Sunday night, causing devastating winds, flooding, and landslides that evacuated hundreds of thousands across Luzon. Despite the devastation, President Marcos said that precautionary evacuations made all the difference by greatly reducing possible losses. The Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG joined the President in recognizing the LGU's efforts around the country for their prompt and decisive action in carrying out preemptive evacuations and early timely reaction missions. The DILG also thanked the police officers, firefighters, and volunteers who risked their lives in heavy rains and high winds to transport families to evacuation centers, help with relief efforts, and secure affected areas.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, the Office of Civil Defense or OCD reported 7 more were added to Super Typhoon Uwan's death count for a total of 25 as of Tuesday night. In an interview with reporters, OCD Deputy Administrator Assistant Secretary Bernardo Rafaelito Alejandro IV said 19 of the fatalities were from the Cordillera Administrative Region or CAR. The OCD reported 18 Uwan deaths earlier in the day. 3 deaths were also reported in Region 2, Cagayan Valley, and 1 each in Regions 5, Bicol, 6 Western Visayas, and 8 Eastern Visayas. Alejandro said 29 were reported injured and 2 were still missing. The super typhoon, which battered Luzon and several areas in the Visayas on Sunday, displaced 2.4 million individuals, the OCC said in its earlier report. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has ordered round-the-clock relief and rehabilitation operations in areas ravaged by the super typhoon, directing all government agencies to stay on full alert.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, said it targets to restore the damaged floodgate of the Paco pumping station to its original position within 2 weeks, while the permanent and reinforced floodgate is expected to be completed in 3 months. The floodgate of the pumping station in Manila was among the infrastructure projects that were damaged during the onslaught of Super Typhoon Uwan over the weekend. Secretary Vince Dizon discovered the damage during an inspection at the Paco pumping station in response to the directive of Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. to immediately assess the extent of the damage caused by Uwan and the immediate repair of the agency's damaged projects, including other infrastructure in Metro Manila. He noted that the floodgate of the said pumping station, which has catchment area of 182 hectares, was damaged after a strong surge of water from the Pasig River reached more than 12 meters on the night of November 9. While the incident and cause of the damage are being investigated, he said that they will collaborate with Korean consultants for a more robust repair of the pumping station. At the same time, the DPWH chief explained that the project is currently under the contractor's 2-year defects and liability period after its rehabilitation in 2024. Because of this, the government will not spend for its repair.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. urges local officials to remain on the ground and not on vacation. Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president dislikes officials who sit back and relax when their countrymen are in difficulty.
Una-una sa Pangulo, hindi po niya gusto to. Hindi niya po gusto na ang mga liderato ay chill lang. So, dapat ang trabaho ay para sa taong bayan. Kasi ang taong bayan umaasa po sa gobyerno, lalo na sa mga gintong klaseng sitwasyon at kondisyon. So, hindi pwedeng sabihin lang na chill lang palagi, dahil dapat trabaho, hindi bakasyon. Although, hindi ko sinasabi nagbabakasyon sila. Still, sasabi ko lang natin, iwasan natin na umalis ng bansa, tumugon sa kalagayan ng ating mga kababayan, lalo-lalo na kapag mayroong sakuna or dilubyong ganito.
Secretary Castro said that the Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG will decide if individuals who deserted their posts during the twin storms will be investigated.
Depende na po yan. Ito po ay nasa pamumuno po to ng DILG. At alam naman po ni Secretary John Vic Rimulya kung anong direktiba ng Pangulo.
And other local authorities to remain in their areas of responsibility and personally oversee response activities when one of the year's fiercest typhoons hit Luzon on Sunday. Despite the reminder, news arose that some local authorities, including Cebu mayors and Isabella's governor, proceeded with their abroad visits.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has recognized the vital role of the Sierra Madre mountain range in shielding Luzon from powerful typhoons. In a press briefing, Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro responded to calls from environmental groups urging stronger protection for the Sierra Madre and other mountain ranges following their role in mitigating the impact of Super Typhoon Uwan, international name Fungwong, on Sunday.
Nakita po ng Pangulo ang kagandahan po na naidulot ng Sierra Madre. Noon pa naman po, maganda po ang naidudulot ng Sierra Madre. At lubhang nakatulong po ito ng tayo bayuhin ng bagyong Uwan. At tingnan po natin kung ano magiging pronouncement po ng ating Pangulo patungkol po sa pagprotekta sa Sierra Madre. Hintayin na lamang po natin.
Advocates have long called the Sierra Madre the backbone of Luzon, noting that its vast forest cover serves as a natural barrier against typhoons coming from the Pacific Ocean. The Philippine Atmospheric Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration said Sierra Madre weakened Super Typhoon Uwan into a typhoon category. Stretching over 500 kilometers from Cagayan in the north to Quezon in the south, the Sierra Madre is the longest mountain range in the Philippines. Sierra Madre plays a crucial role in regulating the country's climate, preventing floods and landslides, and serving as a habitat for hundreds of endemic plant and animal species. The government has implemented several initiatives to protect the mountain range, including the establishment of the Sierra Madre Natural Park and reforestation projects under the National Greening Program. However, environmental groups continue to warn against threats such as illegal logging, mining, and large-scale infrastructure development that could degrade the region's forests.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang announced that the government is implementing new climate-smart policies to assist the Philippines adapt to the growing effects of climate change. Communications Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed the establishment of science and technology-based projects to improve the country's disaster resilience and food security. Among the government's ongoing efforts, she mentioned the Department of Science and Technology's or DOST Automated Furrow Irrigation System, or AFIS, which uses precise irrigation to conserve water and increase crop yields, and a smart farming initiative, which uses soil and moisture sensors to boost agricultural productivity. Undersecretary Castro also said that the government is working on a National Adaptation Plan, or NAP, for a climate-smart and climate-resilient Philippines, while the State Weather Bureau continues to invest in early warning systems and disaster preparedness technologies. She said the president has always highlighted the importance of global collaboration in addressing the climate change.
Yes, opo. Noon pa po, sabi niyo nga po, noon pa ay nababanggitan ng Pangulo ang tungkol sa issue ng climate change. At ang sabi nga po ng Pangulo, hindi lamang iisang bansa ang maaaring tumugon dito, kundi pangkalahatan. Diba? So, ang ibig sabihin po nito, siya po, ang Pangulo po ay nag-utos na magkaroon tayo mismo dito sa ating bansa ng mga new strategies para po matugunan ang issue ng climate change. Nandyan po ang mga ginawa po ng DOST. At nandito po ang Automated Furrow Irrigation System kung saan makakapag-save ng tubig at may improve ang crop yield by applying irrigation precisely and on time. Nandito rin po yung sinasabing new smart farming initiative using soil, moisture. Marami pong programa ang DOST patungkol po dito at para po makaagapay tayo sa climate change. Nandyan din po ang pag-develop po ng Natural Adaptation Plan or NAP for a climate smart and climate resilient Philippines. At nandito rin po ang sinasabi ng DOST Pag-asa na hinighlight din po ang pag-invest in early warning system and disaster preparedness technologies. So, ilan lamang po ito sa kanilang mga ginagawa. Hindi po ito ang lahat. Mas marami pa pong proyekto ang ginagawa at projects ang pamahalaan para po tayo po ay makaagapay sa issue ng climate change.
Communications Undersecretary, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Tuesday expressed optimism that the Philippine economy will recover in the fourth quarter of 2025, citing expected increases in private holiday spending and exports, as well as cautious use of the 1.307 trillion peso budget. Palace Press Officer Clear Castro recognized that the slowdown in economic development in the third quarter of 2025 could be ascribed to the negative impact of recent natural disasters and the controversies surrounding the country's flood control programs.
Taunang ating pagkakaalam, definitely itong mga kalamidad ay nakapagpa-slow down ng economic growth. Pero ang sabi po nga natin ay ayon sa kanilang forecast ay gaganda naman po at mag-i-improve ang ating economic growth sa itong last quarter of the year. But still, bibigyan ko po kayo kung meron po silang ibibigay na report na detalyado, ibibigay ko po sa inyo agad. Sa aking pagkakaalam, merong epekto. May epekto, pero muli, ang detalye nito ay ibibigay ko po kapag po meron na po silang report.
The figures from the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA, the country's economic growth slowed to 4% in the third quarter of 2025, down from 5.5% in the second quarter and 5.2% in the same period last year. This was also the lowest growth rate since the 3.8% contraction in the first quarter of 2021 during the COVID-19 epidemic. Castro said that Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed the proper use of planned appropriations to stimulate economic growth. She noted that the multi-trillion peso budgeted appropriations will be utilized to improve infrastructure, health, and education, as well as to fund disaster relief efforts. The majority of the released plan appropriations will be used for social services through the rest of 2025, creating a multiplier effect on the economy.
Okay, ayon po sa DBM, nakausap po natin, yung GDP growth po ay ina-expect po natin ang improvement ito. Itong sa darating na, itong last quarter po of the year. Dahil po, meron po tayong naasa mga private holiday spending, supported by government programs, pati po ang growth in exports. At yun nga po, ang utos ng Pangulo ay gamitin sa tama yung 1.307 trillion na program budget para po makita po ng mga business sectors na ang gobyerno ay gumagastos sa tama at ito po ay makakapag-boost na economy at ang consumption and investment po.
Communications Undersecretary, Palace Press Officer Clear Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said the Armed Forces of the Philippines or AFP is validating information on the alleged destabilization efforts against the Marcos administration involving the Dutertes, military officers, and other personalities. This came after former columnist Ramon Tulfo in a Facebook post Monday released a list of individuals allegedly being watched by the government for their supposed attempts to destabilize the government. Communications Undersecretary, Palace Press Officer Clear Castro said the names of individuals allegedly involved in destabilization efforts have been referred to the AFP's intelligence community.
Ito po ay napansin na po ng AFP at nabanggit nga rin po ang mga pangalang katulad ni General Pokis, General Orlando De Leon at saka si Mayor Benji Magalong, although for confirmation. At iba pa, pati si Colonel Achica na di umanong sangkot sa usapin ng 125 million pesos na confidential funds ng Vice Presidente. Ayon po sa AFP, sa mga ganitong klaseng mga sinasabi, although ito ay nasa social media, at sa kanila po, ito po ay ibinibigay na rin po sa kanilang intelligence community, iminomonitor, inaalam ang katotohanan. Hindi naman po ibig sabihin na nasabi sa social media ito ay agad na dapat paniwalaan. So kailangan po nilang i-validate at sa ngayon po ayon sa AFP, ito po ay pinamomonitor at binigay na po nila sa intelligence community nila.
Source, Tulfo Tag Vice President Sara Duterte, Davao City First District Representative Paulo Duterte, and politician businessman Chavit Singson as possible financiers in the alleged destabilization plot against the Marcos administration. Tulfo also mentioned Senator Rodante Marcoleta, former Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez, lawyer Ferdinand Topacio, relieved Colonel Raymond Dante Lachica, and retired military officers Romeo Poquiz, Orlando de Leon, and Johnny Macanas. He added that the supposed involvement at Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong is still being confirmed. When asked if the palace considers the alleged destabilization reports a serious matter, Castro said the issue is already being handled by the intelligence community. She said it is necessary to investigate the allegations involving retired generals and other individuals to determine whether their actions fall within the limits of a free expression or are already part of a destabilization effort. Undersecretary Castro, also a lawyer, said it would be premature to conclude that any laws have been violated.
Nasa intelligence community na po yan. Kung meron sila makikitang dapat na talagang pagtuunan ng pansin, ito naman po ay hindi tutulugan ng ating Pangulo. Kailangan po kasi talaga maimbestigahan ito at kasi maaari sabihin nila ito ay freedom of expression. Pero muli, titingnan natin kung ano ang hangganan at kailangan po talaga itong mapaimbestigahan kung ito po ay parte na po talaga ng destabilization. Wala pa po tayo masasabi kung sila ay may nilalabag na batas. Kailangan po maimbestigahan ito na mas malaliman.
Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Finally, for Dateline Malacañang, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. commended former United Nations or UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for his continued advocacy and leadership in promoting climate resilience and sustainable development, particularly in countries vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, such as the Philippines. During a courtesy call at the Malacañang Palace in Manila, President Marcos expressed appreciation for Ban's steadfast commitment to sustainability, stressing that such efforts are crucial to strengthening the country's resilience against natural disasters. Ban thanked President Marcos for the warm reception and expressed hope that the Philippines would swiftly recover from the devastation caused by recent back-to-back typhoons. His visit to Manila followed the onslaught of Super Typhoon Uwan and Typhoon Tino, which brought widespread damage to parts of the Visayas and Luzon. Ban on Monday joined the Trans-Pacific Sustainability Dialogue or TPSD in Makati City, where he urged the international community to support climate-vulnerable nations such as the Philippines in rebuilding from increasingly destructive natural disasters. The TPSD is a joint initiative of the Walter H. Shorenstein Asia Pacific Research Center at Stanford University and the Ban Ki-moon Foundation for a Better Future, which aims to accelerate progress on the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. During their meeting in February 2024, President Marcos welcomed the continued support of the Global Green Growth Institute or GGGI, where Ban serves as president and chairperson of the council. Ban reaffirmed the GGGI's commitment to assist the Philippine government in implementing sustainable and climate-resilient development programs. Joining the president during Tuesday's meeting were Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, Presidential Communications Office Acting Secretary Dave Gomez, and Foreign Affairs Assistant Secretary Maria Teresa Almojuela. Ban was accompanied by Korean Ambassador to the Philippines Lee Sang-hwa, former Korean Ambassador to Australia and Jeju Peace Institute President Kim Bong-yoon, and former Korean Permanent Representative to the UN Kim Suk.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this has been Bea Gaza-De Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.